Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly chilling piece of cinematic lore. We are looking at a story that brilliantly weaves together supernatural terror with a super grounded, highly orchestrated human conspiracy. Just imagine a scenario where a totally mundane night shift, just clocking in to pay the bills, slowly unravels into an absolute, inescapable nightmare. I mean, we've all had bad jobs, right? Maybe a terrible boss or just awful hours. But this one? Yeah, this one definitely takes the cake. Today, we're going to break down the mechanics of this curse, the characters caught in its web, and the hidden mastermind pulling the strings.
So I really want you to start by asking yourself this. What if the museum exhibit you're guarding is actually waiting to kill you? Just picture this for a second. You take a desperate job just to make ends meet. You're told your biggest problems are going to be cleaning up after messy tourists and, honestly, just trying to stay awake. But then, you realize the main attraction, this vintage, supposedly haunted doll named Robert, might actually have a mind of its own. It is such a terrifying premise because it immediately hooks us, right? It shifts the fear from something hiding in the shadows to a physical, tangible object sitting right there behind the glass.
All right, let's get right into section 1, the cursed museum exhibit. So let's meet Emily. She's a struggling student who really just needs some extra cash. She takes on this night cleaner position at a local museum under a deeply, deeply cynical manager named Mr. Belson. Now, Belson is the kind of guy who seems to view his employees as basically nothing more than replaceable cogs in a machine. But what's really interesting here is Belson's attitude towards the museum's newest and most famous exhibit, Robert the Doll. He complete... Which brings us to Section 2, Night Shift Terrors.
So what starts as a supposedly fake marketing gimmick very rapidly turns into undeniable terror. The absolutely crucial turning point comes when Emily makes a discovery that completely shatters any illusion of safety. She's tasked with cleaning the glass case holding Robert the Doll. But she notices something impossible. The handprints she's supposed to wipe away, they aren't on the outside where tourists would lean. No, the handprints were on the inside of the glass. This is such a brilliant way to illustrate the exact moment the threat transitions from a spooky campfire story into a tangible, supernatural reality. The entity inside that case is alive, and it is actively trying to get out.
Let's actually walk through the timeline of how incredibly fast things spiral out of control on that fatal night. At 11 p.m., Emily and her coworker Kevin arrive, fully expecting another standard, super boring night shift. But by 1 a.m., the atmosphere completely shifts. Strange, unexplained banging noises start echoing through the empty museum quarters. And then, at 1:30 a.m., the horror absolutely peaks. Dan, another security guard on duty, is brutally murdered. Think about that. In just a couple of hours, the museum transforms from a quiet, boring workplace into a literal deadly trap. In the aftermath of this shocking violence, our surviving characters are thrust into a truly desperate situation. The authorities arrive, led by a Detective Hardy, who represents cold, hard logic. Now, from the police's perspective, the idea of a haunted doll committing murder is, well, completely absurd. So the only logical suspects are the people at the scene, Emily and Kevin. This creates such a suffocating tension. The protagonists know the horrifying reality that the doll is the actual killer, but they're totally trapped by a legal system that relies entirely on conventional logic in a wholly illogical situation. It's a really terrifying reminder of how vulnerable we are when the actual truth sounds like absolute madness. They are literally forced to prove the impossible just to save their own lives. Moving on to Section 3, A History of Blood.
Desperate to clear her name, Emily starts digging deep into the doll's dark past and manages to track down the only other known survivor of Robert's wrath. Her name is Jennifer Otto. And Jennifer's backstory perfectly lays out the rules of this curse. You see, she's currently locked away in a state mental asylum because absolutely nobody believed her when she claimed the doll slaughtered her family. Even worse, her innocent young son was actually framed for those murders before he was also killed. From Jennifer, Emily learns a critical, game-changing piece of the puzzle. The doll didn't just wake up on its own. Its demonic spirit was intentionally awakened by an occultist.
And this is exactly where we get a name for our true human antagonist, Amos Black. According to Jennifer's research, Black is a dark occultist who actually awakened the doll's curse. He then supposedly faked his own death, totally disappearing from public records, only to continue operating deep from the shadows. He uses the cursed doll to destroy lives, while somehow profiting off all the resulting chaos. This completely flips the narrative for our protagonists. They suddenly realize they aren't just fighting a haunted object. They are investigating a grand conspiracy,
and fighting the human mastermind who controls it. Let's look at Section 4, the mastermind revealed.
This massive realization forces our heroes to go on the offensive against the human element of this conspiracy. They actually notice that the CCTV footage from the night of the murder has, very conveniently, gone missing. Knowing that this footage would totally prove the doll committed the murder, they devise a really dangerous plan. They bluff. They contact their boss, Mr. Belson, and claim they secretly made a copy of the deleted CCTV footage on a phone. They use this fake leverage to lure him into a meeting at the museum, fully intending to blackmail him into confessing his involvement in covering up the supernatural crimes.
But, guys, this is where the narrative completely pulls the rug out from under us. When confronted, Belson doesn't just confess to covering up the crimes for good PR. Oh no, he reveals an infinitely darker truth. Belson admits that he is actually Amos Black. He's been hiding in plain sight this whole time, and he gloats. He absolutely relishes the moment, telling them, "You've messed with the master of the game. You children can't escape." He deliberately arranged for the doll to be at the museum, and he intentionally orchestrated the murders just to increase the doll's infamy and value.
And that takes us to Section 5, the deadly trap. So Emily and Kevin quickly realize they haven't just cornered a corrupt businessman. They have literally locked themselves in a museum with a deadly occultist. The climax unfolds in absolute chaos, showcasing a truly brilliant piece of dramatic irony. Step 1. Belson, or Amos Black, arrogantly gloats about his absolute control of the curse and the doll. But then, Step 2, the supernatural entity proves it cannot be tamed. The doll unexpectedly turns right on its master, brutally killing Belson. And then, tragically in Step 3, as Emily and Kevin try to use the distraction to escape, the doll catches up with them and Kevin is killed. The whole human conspiracy just crumbles, leaving only this unstoppable supernatural force. Finally, Section 6, the curse continues. As the dust finally settles, we see the incredibly bleak, cyclical reality of this curse. It has a very rigid set of rules that execute themselves perfectly. I mean, just look at how history repeats itself here. Jennifer Otto survived the doll's attack, was framed by the police for the murders of her family, and was institutionalized. Now look at Emily. She survives the massacre at the museum, is found surrounded by the bodies of Belson and Kevin, and because the doll has mysteriously vanished from the crime scene, she is framed for the murders and institutionalized. The curse doesn't just kill. It actively destroys the lives of the survivors to protect its own secret. But wait, the conspiracy actually goes even deeper than Amos Black. In the final moments, we discovered that Detective Hardy, the cop who was so eager to blame Emily, is completely corrupt. He actively smuggles Robert the doll right out of the police evidence room. He then meets with a mysterious, shadowy figure who pays him off and reclaims the doll. This new master literally promises to put the doll back on its feet, proving that there's an entire network of dark actors out there willing to profit off this cursed object.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought to wrap up today's explainer. The curse is officially back in circulation, guided by new hands with dark intentions. The cycle is primed and ready to begin all over again. So, who will the doll target next? It is a huge testament to how effectively this story blends human corruption with supernatural terror, leaving us questioning the shadows long after the story ends. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and definitely keep your eyes peeled for what we explore next.